attendees today. My name is Rabbi Joe Prass. I'm the Director of Holocaust Education at the Breman Museum. Just a word about the Breman Museum. For almost 25 years, the Breman has been the Atlanta address for Jewish arts, culture, and history. Our permanent exhibition on the Holocaust has welcomed thousands of visitors every year. We are so proud of our archives that chronicles the Jewish history of Atlanta, as well as all of the arts and culture programs that we stage throughout the year. As we teach the lessons of the Holocaust through the eyes of local survivors, we see that it is so important to remain vigilant against anti-Semitism and all forms of hate, which makes this program all the more important today. Sadly, hate has become more prevalent than any time in our history, and that's why we appreciate the Wiesenthal Center for being part of this program. I'm going to turn it over to our partners in just a moment. What I will say is that throughout the program, just a little housekeeping. If you have questions as we move along, you can type them into the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. The chat function has been disabled for this particular webinar, so if there's any questions, please send them through to through the Q&A function. And now I want to turn it over to our partners from the Wiesenthal Center. I want to introduce Allison Pure-Slovan, who is the Regional Director for the Wiesenthal Center, who will introduce our speaker now. Allison.
Thank you, and thank you to the Breman Center for this wonderful partnership, which is an important one to us, and we look forward to more webinars and work within your museum in Atlanta. The Simon Wiesenthal Center is a global Jewish human rights organization which researches the Holocaust and hate in historic and contemporary context. The center confronts anti-Semitism, hate and terrorism, promotes human rights and dignity, stands with Israel, defends the safety of Jews worldwide, and teaches the lessons of the Holocaust for future generations. In a few moments, you will hear from my colleague, Rick Eaton, who for more than 34 years is the senior researcher at the Simon Wiesenthal Center and co-director of our Digital Terrorism and Hate Project. He has become a leading expert on both domestic and international extremist groups and online hate and terrorism. Over the years, Rick has shared his knowledge by conducting training sessions with FBI, ATF, and the U.S. Attorney's Office, the U.S. Military, and dozens of law enforcement agencies and private groups. But what brings us together today is a serious global challenge, and I'm not referring to the pandemic, but the bigots who are trying to further infect our society with history's oldest virus, anti-Semitism and hate. I am sure that it comes to no surprise that there are those who are insidiously trying to blame Jews for the spread of the coronavirus. Anti-Semites never take a day off demonizing the Jewish people. It is now my honor to turn the webinar over to Rick, who will share the increasing propaganda that the Simon Wiesenthal Center is following on the web. Thank you, Rick.
Thank you, Allison. Thank you, Rabbi, and thank you, the Breman Museum. It's one of the best parts of my job is being able to share what I learn with people that need to know and others that can use my knowledge in their work. I apologize for the lighting on my screen here, but trust me, you're better off seeing me in shadow than in full light anyway. So see if I can share my screen here. So we do an annual report called Digital Terrorism and Hate. We have produced over the years 22 editions of this in CD and now in the form of a thumb drive and also in an app, which I will show you how to access at the end of the program. But we do this annual release, and one of the things that we do is we create a report card based on what we've seen on different social networking sites over in recent years. The social networking is really something that when the internet first started, extremist groups had the idea this would be a very good recruiting tool and the like, and all of them created websites and so forth. But the promise that they had of recruitment really has only come to fore with social networking and the interaction that comes from it. So we do this report card. You see there's a number of different sections. We report on the biggest big five of Facebook and Twitter and Google. We have a section for alt tech, which is basically news sites that we're seeing, messaging sites and gaming, and even got a new category this year called meme sites. So let me go into this with some of the sites that we're dealing with. And when we do our report, we happen to be in Washington, D.C. the first week of March, back when things were almost normal, when we did this report and we did this release with a number of congressmen at the Capitol. And even at that time, we were starting to see we're just barely hearing about the virus and what it entailed. But even early on, we had these postings from 4chan. If you're not familiar with 4chan and a companion site called 8chan, or it's now rebranded to 8kun, if the internet has a sewer, this is it. And we see a lot of horrific material on these. This is the same places that mass shooters like John Earnest, the Poway synagogue shooter, post their links for their live streams and the manifestos and the like. But even in February, we were already starting to see postings that were blaming Jews. If you see the Jews have been engaged in biological warfare, it's always the Jews. Also targeting Muslims. We saw the things like this saying, I hope it's still around at the time of the Hajj so that they can be affected. The Hajj being when Muslims go to Mecca every year. So targeting all kinds of minorities. This is another one from a site called Telegram. If you get infected with the virus, go to your local synagogue, hug as many Jews as possible. Early on, we started seeing things like this. This is from March, where saying, you have to get takeout, but the Jews will somehow lace it with coronavirus. Or this one targeting Bill Gates and saying he's behind the push for a vaccine, and we actually see people online saying, I won't take any vaccine because Bill Gates had something to do with it. Maybe they're trying to implant you with tracking chips and things like that. Just total craziness. So these are some of the images. You saw one of the postings, but this was an image that came out in March. And again, if you have the bug, give a hug, spread the flu to every Jew. We saw a lot of things like this. These next few images are all posted to a site called Telegram, which I'm going to talk about in just a minute. This was another one, which actually looks like it's a warning from the CDC. It's obviously fake. It says what to do if you get COVID-19, visit your local mosque, visit your local synagogue, spend the day on public transport, go to diverse neighborhoods, do your best to spread the disease. And we've seen an increasing amount of this type of material, this way to, for people to go out and get active and be proactive in not only with the disease, but other examples as well. So here was another one posted to a Telegram account that was created called Corona Waffen Division, and cough on your local minority. So what exactly is this Telegram? This was one of the other postings when you look at COVID-19, and I can't even spell, under a microscope, this is what you see in the classic anti-Semitic elongated issue of image of a Jew. So what is Telegram? Telegram is an app. You can also get it as a website if you're on a computer, but it is a two-pronged communications device. You can use it for one-to-one encrypted in communications, which a lot of people do. But you also can create a feed. And you see on the screen here that there are a number of feeds. I've sorted them out into one because you see Atomwaffen Division, videos, Stern-Krohn Rape Waffen Division, particularly disturbing feed that we've seen for the last few months. It was actually taken off Telegram and they restarted it. And you see it promoting violence. You see the weaponry at the top. You see the guy at the bottom, actually a Russian waving a swastika flag. And the level of violence that we see with these Telegram feeds is very disturbing. There's one called Atomwaffen Division Deutschland, which literally shows an image of a neo-Nazi killing a Muslim by cutting his throat and saying, "Go out and kill Muslims." It says "taught Muslims" or "kill Muslims." So most of these that I've sorted out here, you see, are connected or at least inspired by the Atomwaffen Division. The Atomwaffen Division was a neo-Nazi group in the U.S. that was started a few years ago, extremely militant, very careful about who they would accept as members, and particularly anti-Semitic. You see the picture of Rudolf Hess there. This was one of their recruiting posters. So a very, very violent group, and a lot of the material again that we see on Telegram that is inspired by this group is extremely violent. This group has been linked to at least 5 murders since 2008, 2017 exactly. Sorry. Including Blaze Bernstein, a college student in Orange County, California, who was actually set up by somebody that he knew from school. For the most part, the Atomwaffen Division has been rolled up in this country and arrested. Many of them are in jail, but we continue to see these Telegram feeds that are started and, as I said, inspired by this organization. Showed you that one already. Here's a couple more images from some of these. And one of the interesting things about these sites, all those that I showed listed there, the Atomwaffen Division Deutschland, Führerkrieg Division, they share all these different imagery on their sites. And one of the things that you can do with Telegram on your feeds is cross-post different images and links and things that you find there. So one of the things that we've seen, which is particularly disturbing, and again, I mentioned this increased level of violence, there has been an attempt in recent months, and especially during the pandemic, the same time that these images of, cough on minorities and spread the flu to every Jew, interspersed with those were these next couple postings that I'm showing you that are essentially trying to deify mass murders. Jan Ernest is the young man from San Diego County who went to the synagogue in Poway, shot 4 people, one woman died. So they're trying to make him out to be a saint or a hero. And I'll show you a couple more similar images. Also notice the symbol in the background. This is called the sun wheel. This was used in Nazi Germany, not extensively, but it's been used in Europe quite a bit in places where Nazis can't really display swastika flags and things like that. But in the last couple of years, and especially since Brenton Tarrant killed 50 people, 50 Muslims at the two mosques in Christchurch, New Zealand, and had used the sun wheel, we started to see a more extensive use of it here. So when you see something like this, even though you're not seeing any swastikas and SS bolts and things like that, you pretty much know what you have. Here's another image trying to deify Ernest as well. This is Dylan Roof. Dylan Roof is the young man who shot a dozen people at the First AME Church in South Carolina, and again, you see the sun wheel in the background. You see the 1488. 1488 is a very common theme used by white supremacists. The 14 stands for 14 words, the white supremacist mantra: we must secure the existence of our people and a future for white children, which was coined by a member of the group The Order, which went on a white supremacist rampage around the Northwest back in the 1980s. And one of their members, who was in prison and actually died in prison, coined this phrase. You also see the 88, which stands for the 8th letter of the alphabet, HH, or Heil Hitler. And then here's another image of sainthood for Brenton Tarrant, the Christchurch, New Zealand shooter, Hitler, and Dylan Roof in the background. So we've seen a lot of these. There's others. Again, they came out all at the same time from February to April this year. It's kind of an interesting juxtaposition. This is one that was a little bit earlier, but you see it's taking 6 heroes that they would call heroes of white supremacy. You have Alexander Bissonnette, who shot up a mosque in Canada last year. You have Brenton Tarrant. You have Anders Breivik from Norway. You have Dylan Roof. Patrick Crusius, who committed actually the worst shooting in the U.S. this year at the Walmart in El Paso, and he targeted that Walmart because he knew that people came over from Mexico to do their shopping there. And then, interestingly enough, the last guy on there is Joseph Paul Franklin, who is a white supremacist serial killer from back in the late 70s and early 80s. This was another image that was posted on Telegram since with the pandemic. You see the Asian starts coughing, coughs on Uncle Sam, and what's Uncle Sam do? Turns around and gives a check to Jews. This is a pretty common theme. So here we have a posting that was made to Twitter in March, and you see that this one is one of many that began to blame not only Jews but Israel for the virus. And you see this one in the kind of known image of the Jews for the virus, but in the shape of the Star of David. And along with that, one of the things that has sprung up on Twitter is a hashtag called COVID-48. 48 being Israeli independence and what Muslims would call the Nakba, or the catastrophe. And you see images like this and a variety of them in this hashtag, spreading the idea that Israel is behind the virus, that they're spreading it to Muslims and especially the Palestinians. There's a couple more images very similar. All of these, there are many of these that read like the one here: the real virus is the Zionists. This is again one of many on this same hashtag. This is an interesting one because it not only blames Israel, but says that shows the American bombers supposedly dropping the coronavirus onto the Palestinians. And then a similar image showing the Israeli soldiers as spreading the virus. This is one of the classic images that Palestinians use, the young Palestinian holding the flag standing in front of an Israeli tank. They just added the coronavirus image to it. And some of the more disturbing ones, such as this, anyone who supports Israel is not human. And more, there's plenty like this. The Palestinians face two viruses, the pandemic and Israel. So some of our more traditional haters have not been left out of this process as well. This was an early post from March by David Duke. There was a time, right about the time that the stay-at-home orders were issued in different places, and this one speculated that President Trump had kind of sounded like he had a cold or something like that. So Duke automatically speculated that does he have the virus? Are Israel and the global Zionist elite up to their old tricks? Very constant. David Duke, interestingly enough, really doesn't target minorities that often. His primary target is always Jews. And there is a second posting that just came out a few days ago about the horror that Jews are inflicting on us by continuing the shutdowns and forcing to wear masks and so forth. There's another one which is kind of interesting. You may not have heard about this guy. This is a guy by the name of Brother Nathaniel. Interestingly enough, he was born Jewish. He somewhere converted to Eastern Orthodox, and he lives up in Colorado, although his foundation is in Idaho, so he may have moved. But he puts out a couple different videos a week, usually, all of them blaming Jews for just about anything, everything. Anything that happens in the world negative, it must have something to do with Jews. So again, you see early on in the process, third week of March, he put out this video called the Corona Carnival. Essentially, not only blames Jews for the pandemic, but also says, oh, look what they're doing. They're putting the Jewish banker in charge of the response, being Secretary Mnuchin. So he's a very interesting guy. If you want to get a chuckle, go to YouTube and watch one of his videos. I know most people don't like to do that kind of thing, but it is kind of good for a laugh. He's very prolific. As I say, he does a couple of videos a week, and he's got dozens of them on YouTube. And he's been producing this blog, Real Jew News, for some time, all along the same themes. You can see the categories along the right side there, references to Alex Jones and the Antichrist will be a Jew, and on and on. The assassination of President McKinley by Jews. I mean, everything is Jews with Brother Nathaniel. So what's going on Facebook? And this is kind of now getting away from the coronavirus issue, but some of the things that we see constantly, there are a lot of fake profiles that are created on Facebook with very hokey Jewish names like Shlomo Sheckelstein and things like that. When these are identified, then I'm able to send these to Facebook, and they usually get removed almost immediately. And this is one that just early on in the year we found, which was essentially a fake synagogue, and you see what they did is they said this fake synagogue was supposedly assisting refugees in getting green cards and getting settled and things like that. The synagogue didn't even exist. But fake postings can be very disturbing. If you remember that with the Pittsburgh synagogue shooting, Robert Bowers was inspired by a post that he saw about the Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society, which is an organization that's been around for 100 years, and they help settle immigrants. He assumed that by doing that, what HIAS was doing was bringing in immigrants to replace the white people in the US. And this is a common theme against white supremacists, the replacement theory. And Bowers posted to a site called Gab very shortly before he went into the synagogue and saying, I can't let my people get slaughtered, I have to take action. So we take fake postings like this seriously, and fortunately, Facebook, we have a good relationship with them, and things they can pretty much tell. They try to find these things on their own, but as soon as we notify them, they get them off. This is a typical type of thing that's been posted to Facebook over the years. Again, you see the elongated image of the Jew, and this is one of the common ones. Actually, this image known as the Jewish merchant, although this one, as you see, has been modified to different things. This is one of the most popular anti-Semitic images. It's posted to Facebook constantly. This is another one of those fake posts. There were a couple of them. I guess I left. You can't see the one on the bottom, but this one, Manny Shevitz. Well, any of us who have been to a Seder as kids know who Manny Shevitz is. And again, this is one that's easily removed by Facebook once we notify them. I'm sorry I messed up that. So one of the things that we do when we look at the internet and what we did with our release in March in DC was we show what trends that we've found in the current year. And one of the things that we're looking at is a lot of different new platforms, because as the sites such as Facebook and Twitter and others get better at this, they've taken things off, and we've gotten new platforms that extremists are going to. So one of those is vk.com. This is a Russian Facebook. It's the number 20 site in the world, although most people not even familiar with it. This is a very violent profile from a guy in Chicago that talking about killing Jews and maggot kikes and so forth. One of the most vicious profiles we've ever seen. Things like this, we will, when we can identify them, we will report them to law enforcement. This is a couple others from VK. This is a Holocaust denial site. But here's another new platform, which is a big concern, called iFunny. You see, again, the image of Brenton Tarrant in there, the swastika. This guy's talking about shooting feds. And here's one more that I wanted to show. This is one that we identified late last year, Minnesota nationalist using iFunny. This was a kid who just graduated high school, and he's instructing prospective shooters to target politicians instead of normal people. You'll make a bigger statement. We know he just graduated high school because he posted his diploma. And you see that he whited out his name, but he left the school. So we were able to track this back and figure out who he was. These are some of the types of things that he had posted. And most disturbing is he posted this, which was his own magazines that were, you see were painted with tyranny remover and things about various gun legislation, the bump stock ban, the Brady bill, and the like. If this is reminiscent of anything else that you may have seen, this is exactly what Brenton Tarrant did. The Christchurch, New Zealand shooter painted his magazines like this. So when we see a 18, 19-year-old doing the same thing, posting this kind of imagery, then again, we will automatically turn that over to law enforcement. So that's all I have. There's obviously much more out there. We look at tens of thousands of sites and images and so forth all year. We then try to boil those down into a coherent package that you can access at digitalhate.net or as an app. The two look different. The app works a little better, but it's an interactive thing. It's not like a traditional report. We actually show the sites, and in fact, some of those that I showed here were what the sites would look like on our app. We break it down into a geographic section, a strategies section as to how the net's used, what new platforms, things like that, and then we have a terrorism section as well. So this is accessible to anyone who wants to go to it, and we update it on an annual basis, but we also update it throughout the year with new material, and we have a breaking section for things that come up throughout the year. So at that point, I'll stop, and if we have questions, I'll be happy to take them.
Hi, Rick, can you hear me? It's Allison.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, so I'm going to, I have a few questions that I'm going to share. Hold on, sorry. The first is, someone thanks you for the presentation, and they wonder if the groups that are blaming the Jews and other minorities, are they doing it to be strategic and to recruit, or do they actually believe these conspiracy theories themselves?
That's an interesting question. They're obviously doing this for the recruitment value. Now, many of these people, many, not all, believe the conspiracies that they promote, but not all of them do. And when we talk to people who had been in the movement, I've worked with many formers over the years, and you talk to them, and they will say, I didn't always believe these things when I was promoting Holocaust denial or the like, but they were said this is what we have to do. But I would say that the majority actually do believe these things. Fortunately, in the case of formers, they sometimes come to reality sometime later. But it's a mix. There are many that do, but we've had some of the, look at even Alex Jones, probably the hero of conspiracy theories, has made statements once he's gone to court in his legal battles. In his divorce has said, I'm just a showman. I don't, and claims he doesn't always believe all the things that he very, very vociferously promotes.
Okay, thank you. The next question is that obviously people are disturbed by what you shared with them and the hate groups that are on websites. And the question is, what can we do? I mean, if you see something on the internet, and the specific person asked about Jews specifically, but I'm going to ask it more broad-based. If anybody sees hate or anything like this on the internet, you have resources to go to the social, media giants. What do we do at people who are observing it on the internet?
Oh, well, that's an important point, and let me make clear. We made this presentation primarily about anti-Semitism because it's been so rampant of late. But our report goes across the board. We are interested in all forms of hatred and bigotry. And if you look at our app, you'll see that we report on a lot of different things. So we're always interested in all forms of hate. If you look at the app, or you can write this down, there is an email called ireport@wiesenthal.com, where people can contact us and send us a link to something that they see, website or social media. If it's particularly with social media, we are able to use our contacts at Facebook and Twitter and Google and other sites, and have those companies deal with it. Mainly what we do is we try to get those companies to enforce the rules that they already have in place. Most of those companies do have terms of service, and most people don't read them. I'm the one that gets to do that all the time, and we can contact those companies and organizations and deal with it. And I apologize, I'm not sure if you can hear it, but my trash is being picked up in the background. So
No, no problem. There's a few questions of people who would like to know if you think that American politics, where we are today in the last 4 years, and the administration has anything to do with the rise of what we're monitoring and seeing on these websites.
Oh, absolutely. And one of the things being is going back to the 2016 campaign, that brought a lot of people out. We had a situation where you had a whole new younger generation that had come to the extremist movement in 2014 and 15 and 16, which was at one time known as the alt-right. Then they rebranded to white nationalists. The 2016 campaign really brought that out. A lot of people who did not want to hear anything against candidate Trump then began targeting Jews and others. Journalists who wrote an editorial against his candidacy, they would start targeting. They would put an echo or 3 parens around the name to signify that they were Jews. And the campaign with websites, with social media, got particularly ugly, to the point where many of these people were then kicked off Twitter and went to sites like Gab. But then you move forward a little bit to Charlottesville, and Charlottesville was kind of a high watermark for these people, but stronger condemnations coming from politicians, coming from the administration, would always help these situations. But as we've heard, the president's been seriously criticized for not coming out stronger against these issues, and Charlottesville and the like, or saying that, his comment about good people on both sides, that we need a strong condemnation of racism, of bigotry, of anti-Semitism from our leadership. And people do take cues from that. And unfortunately, especially with the outright extremists and white nationalists, they certainly saw that as acceptance of what they were doing.
Well, that leads to the next question, and that is, is there been any kind of legislation? There's been there's legislation in many states, anti-hate crimes bills, hate crimes bills. I know we have one that was passed here in Illinois. Georgia specifically does not have hate crimes legislation. Do you think that would be helpful in terms of what's going on?
We actually have hate crimes legislation in something like 45, 46 states. There are still a couple that do not. We also have a federal hate crimes law, although it's not used very often. But certainly hate crimes laws and a full package of them, different states have different laws. So here in California, we have hate crimes laws that cover race, religion, ethnicity, sexual preference, disabilities, and it's just about everything you can cover. Some states don't do that. They don't have a full package and don't cover transgender issues and things like that. So obviously, yes, we do need strong hate crimes laws, but we also need hate crimes to be prosecuted. And unfortunately, sometimes that's a political football that hate crimes are not necessarily prosecuted under hate crimes laws. A local district attorney gets to make that decision if that state even has hate crimes laws. And a good example is what happened in the Matthew Shepard case, the college student who was perceived to be gay, picked up in a bar, taken out to a remote location and beaten, eventually found and taken to a hospital, but he died. Wyoming at the time did not have hate crimes laws, and there was a big push to have them legislated, and the state resisted. They said, we have laws against murder and assault, we'll use those. But hate crimes laws are important because they show that it's not only, you know, the family and friends of a victim that suffer. It's in the case of crimes, anti-Semitism, racism, you know, transgender, homosexual crimes. It's the whole community that suffers in these cases. So there's a reason that hate crimes laws exist. We would like to see them instituted everywhere and in the full range of crimes.
Okay, another question is the artwork and the images that you shared are pretty sophisticated. Do you know if there are websites dedicated to providing these images for hate groups, or do the hate groups, are they creating them themselves?
In most cases, they are creating them themselves, and in fact, on a number of those Telegram accounts that I showed, and remember I said that those are kind of shared across different ones. Many of those images come from one particular artist. So I'm always surprised by the creativity of extremists and terrorists as well. But there are a few things that are reposted. There are a couple of artists. One is David Dees. One is is in the case of Israel and the Palestinians. There's a Brazilian artist that a lot of his cartoons and things like that are reshared. But the vast majority, and certainly the ones that I showed today, are they are creating those themselves.
You know, in terms of the material that you shared and what you see, and how social media looks at it, the giants, what's the difference, you know, what's the delineation, the distinction between hate speech and free speech?
Interesting question, because a lot of people say, well, that my free speech is being abridged, and you know, they want to claim it's a First Amendment issue. It's not. Social media companies are private companies. They can institute whatever rules that they choose for their systems. When you sign up for an account on Facebook or Twitter, whether you read it or not, you have to agree to those rules. So it's not a censorship issue as such. That being said, these organizations and companies try to adhere to certain levels of free speech. They want to encourage discussion, and there are subjects that concern us. For example, the subject of Holocaust denial. Some of those discussions they are willing to accept, as long as they don't get out of hand and devolve into things that they feel they need to take off. But So in most cases, they try to adhere to a certain amount of free speech, but on the other hand, they're corporations. They've got advertising, and they have to regulate what they see. Advertisers don't want to be on the same page as someone who's using racist slurs and things like that. So it is an interesting balance that is created.
When there is an incident, a shooting or a violent act that has been identified as anti-Semitic, racist, or hate crime, how do we, are people dismissing it as the result of a mental health disorder, or do we know in fact that it's someone who's really out there trying to hurt someone that they don't deem as equal to them?
Unfortunately, I think in most cases it is the latter. People are out there trying to target people that they perceive are their enemies. As I mentioned, the replacement theory, the Brent and Terrence manifesto was called the Great Replacement. Uh, Robert Bowers in the Pittsburgh synagogue shooting was convinced that people were coming in to replace white people, either by immigration or breeding whites out of existence. So unfortunately, I think the vast majority of incidents like that are specifically targeting a group, and they are unfortunately in many cases inspired by the propaganda that they see online.
It's often said that white supremacists or people who subscribe to that movement are amongst a minority. Do you think that that's true? And if not, how widespread do you think the National Socialist Movement is, white supremacist movements, or anybody who subscribes to those thought processes? How large is it?
Yeah, the good news is that they are a relative minority. The bad news is that with the increase in the internet, with social media, the numbers are going up. There are a lot of young people that at least temporarily get inspired by what they see online, and we saw that in the case of 2016, where a lot of people joined in with what was known as during the campaign as the Great Meme War of 2016, and a lot of people who hadn't been active got involved in that. Then with Charlottesville, a lot of them started to tail off. In general, though, I mean, you're still talking about relatively small numbers. When you get a Charlottesville was, as I said, the high water mark. You had I don't know the numbers because they never come out, but a couple thousand people that showed up. You had hundreds during the night before on a torch march through the University of Virginia. But across the country, the numbers are relatively low. There's no accurate way to say, how many are out there. Is it 50,000, 100,000? Maybe so, but that's a small percentage of the people in this country. Unfortunately, their activities and their actions, and as I said before, that we see this more and more online, these postings and feeds that are trying to get people to take action. Those affect all of us, and they get a great deal of attention, and that's what extremists want. They are always looking for that attention, get that news story, get people to go to that Telegram feed or the website or the blog or the Facebook page or whatever it might be.
There's someone who's participating or listening in this webinar who's asked me to caution and remind people that violence does not necessarily equal mental illness, and mental illness doesn't equal violence. Just because you're violent doesn't mean you have a mental illness, or if you have a mental illness, it's going to lead to violence. So we have to be careful on how we talk about people who are participating in these kinds of hate groups or violent actions.
Absolutely, and I'm not sure that there's been any really definitive studies about mental illness in conjunction with uh, uh, hate. So and I'm certainly not a professional in the field, but have there been a few people who suffered from mental illness? Absolutely. One of those was the guy who committed a shooting at a Jewish community center here in the San Fernando Valley about 20 years ago, who definitely suffered from mental illness. He had been in and out of mental institutions up in the Washington area before he came to Los Angeles and committed his attack. His name was Buford Furo, but there's no telling that what the percentage of these people is that may suffer from mental illness. Buford Furo is one that definitely did.
How do you respond to young people who express feelings of being targeted for being white after being exposed to this content?
Well, this is another virus that we suffer from in this country, and it's hate in general. And unfortunately, we have young people from both sides that, like you say, are being targeted. It's a difficult subject, and it's one that we have created a program that we are doing in schools to address these issues. We call it the Combat Hate Workshop, and then we go in and talk to a classroom of students about what their social media usage is, and have they seen online hate. We show some examples, we talk about it, we show them some resources, people who have done online very good things. There are a lot of different initiatives online that by young people that deal with this. But this is a subject that needs to be addressed in the classroom, because those incidents of people being targeted as being white or being any other, a lot of the times come from something that someone saw online, and that's one person's agenda that is then spread to those that see it and then go and actually target someone in real life. And there's hate on all sides, and we have to take seriously if we do have incidents of white kids being targeted, just as we do of minorities.
We're going to wrap it up. I know there's a lot of people who've got a lot of questions, and this opens up a whole conversation about the concern. But one last question would be, first of all, the chairman of the board of the Breman wants to thank us. Thank you, Lori, for sharing this material with us. And as we see this increase in anti-Semitic and extremist activity, it enforces the need for Holocaust and anti-Semitic education. So I think it's important for organizations like ours to work together to bring this to light. And, I think that we've all learned, and we see it in the Museum of Tolerance in Los Angeles, the Simon Wiesenthal Center, that it didn't end with the Holocaust. Unfortunately, it continues. I mean, since the Holocaust, we had Darfur, Rwanda, Cambodia. Hate continues to grow. And I think, Rick, as you said, the best way to teach it is in the classroom, to have the conversations with students. And I would say that I have found in the work that I'm doing that parents aren't having these conversations with their kids either, or their grandchildren. What are our students seeing on the internet? And students don't know how to shut it down, just like adults don't. And how can you address that?
Well, and you're right, they don't know how to shut it down. And that's why the curriculum that we've started, and I hope we'll be able to spread in other curriculum that that addresses those issues, because the closer to the incident that those issues are addressed, and if a you know, a child, an African American or an Asian or someone else targets a white child, the sooner that issue is picked up, is discussed with the whole class, essentially, and talking about the things surrounding. Well, how does that type of hatred not only affect that person, but other people, other white kids in the class? And we have to have these discussions. And I'm not aware of any great curriculum that's out there. That's why we've started the initiative that we have, and we certainly would like to be able to spread that class and the workshop that we're doing. But there need to be other initiatives, and as I say, they need to be addressed immediately or as soon as possible in the classroom setting, because that's where they happen.
Before I turn it over to Rabbi Joe to close, Rick, why don't you please share one more time with everybody that if they see something on the internet or that they're concerned about, how they can reach out to the Simon Wiesenthal Center.
The easiest way is through an email, which is ireport@wiesenthal.com. And those reports go directly to me. And as I said, we're interested not only in anti-Semitism, but all forms of racism, bigotry, promoting violence, promoting terrorism. We will take them all, and if they are things that can be addressed in various places, whether it be with social media companies, with law enforcement, whatever, we will make those contacts. It's ireport@wiesenthal.com, and our report, if you want to see it, is at digitalhate.net or Digital Terror and Hate in the App Store and Google Play.
Thank you. And again, I'm going to turn it over to Rabbi Joe, but I also want to leave by saying that as we hopefully get back to some sense of normalcy at some point in our lives, and people get to see each other and students are back in the classroom, we will be working with the Breman Museum to bring these kinds of programs to the schools to help our students in Georgia or Illinois or wherever you are. Reach out to us to show you how to shut down what's on the internet and what's not appropriate material. So thank you very much, Rabbi.
Well, I want to thank Rick, and I want to thank Allison and the Wiesenthal Center for bringing this incredibly important and timely program. During this time while we are all confined at home, I think many of us are spending more and more time on the internet to find things that we find interesting. Sadly, I think Rick has brought us the information that others are spending time on the internet for quite the opposite purpose. And so thank you for bringing it to our attention. As Allison said, we look forward to the time when we are all able to come out, that we, for those of you who are in Georgia or surrounding areas, can come back into the museum, to visit the Breman Museum, to share in our programs, to hear about all of our programs that teach the human story of how we have to learn tolerance, how we have to learn from the mistakes of the past. As we move forward, please visit us while we can't be together at thebreman.org. Or the Wiesenthal Center at wiesenthal.com. Google will get you to either of our sites. Both of us have a robust web presence these days, and we hope that you will learn from what is going on in and around the community and from our past, current, and future programs. Thank you all for spending an hour with us. We look forward to further programs with the Wiesenthal Center and joining together soon enough. Have a great day.